welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtada Khan, your host, and today I'm coming to you from Pune, in the state of Maharashtra in India. Uh, Today, I want to talk to you about the escalating war between the US and Europe over essentially Greenland. Donald Trump had threatened to impose tariffs on the countries that opposed his demand for total control over Greenland. And given the anger and concern with which the European nations have responded, he thought that perhaps that threat would work, but apparently it has not. And Donald Trump has essentially announced that the US will be imposing 10% tariffs on on 8 of the European countries, which are essentially opposed to or have expressed some kind of reservation against Donald Trump's tariffs. Some of those countries are basically France and Germany and UK, Sweden, Netherlands, Finland, and Norway, and of course Denmark. These 8 countries are those who have sent troops. Well, they are symbolic, but they have sent troops to Greenland, and they are there apparently to protect Greenland and the Arctic. So, in a way, the Europeans have symbolically said we will defend Denmark from any invasion, and so the troops, while they claim that they are there for reconnaissance and surveillance, and they are symbolic. For example, England has sent only one soldier. Germans have sent only 13 soldiers. So it's not as if they have sent an army, but they have sent troops there, sending the message that symbolically Europe is going to defend Denmark's control over Greenland. So Donald Trump has now imposed 10% additional tariffs on all of these countries. They will kick in on February 1st. And he has given notice until June. So basically 4 more months. And if by June Greenland is not handed over to Donald Trump, or at least the issue is not fully resolved in the manner in which Donald Trump wants it, which is complete control on Greenland. Either it is bought or he plans to annex it. If that doesn't happen, he is going to raise the tariffs on these 8 countries to 25%. Now, that is pretty huge, and that should basically undermine US Europe trade relations, especially with the big countries like Great Britain, France, and Germany, with whom the US has very robust trade. And it's also going to have a huge impact on the holiday season, that is the high tourism season. That's also the time when apparently there are lots of NATO summit meetings and resolutions. And so it is difficult to imagine anything positive coming out of NATO meetings while a trade war between Europe and other countries, between US and European countries, is ongoing. So the deadline for June is very significant. But the real issue is today. So if the US Supreme Court, which is going to decide on January 20th if Donald Trump's tariffs are legal or not, and if the Supreme Court decides that Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal, then then the whole issue is moot. But I'm not sure. The Supreme Court has defended Donald Trump and has sided with him on almost all major issues. So it is quite possible that the Supreme Court will find some way to say that, well, what Donald Trump is doing is not entirely illegal. Because if all of those tariffs are basically deemed illegal, then not only Donald Trump's foreign policy will collapse, his presidency will be basically ended in a way. He will be rendered completely lame duck. But not only that, the US will have to literally return billions and billions of dollars, and we wouldn't even know how to return it and who to return it to. So it's going to be a total mess if the Supreme Court decides that Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal. But Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has said repeatedly that even if the Supreme Court deems that the tariffs are illegal, the Trump administration will find some way to go forward and use the tariff. There are other, uh, at least in their mind, there are other legal avenues by which they can pursue this. And of course, this will also create a constitutional crisis, saying that when it comes to foreign policy and national security, the commander in chief has should have very broad latitude to protect the country, and that is what Donald Trump has essentially invoked by saying that there's an emergency, an economic emergency, and so under that he has been imposing the tariffs. But for the first time, the Europeans have hit back. And this is interesting to see that until now they were basically surrendering and bending the knee to Donald Trump. But this time they have come back with three potential blows that they can strike against Donald Trump. The first one is they're waiting to hear from the Supreme Court. So if the Supreme Court decides that the tariffs are illegal, then the Europeans have to do nothing. But I mean, they have to worry about an invasion by Donald Trump on Greenland, but not the 10% tariffs on these 8 countries. But if the Supreme Court says they are legal, then they are planning to take a vote. So they have three weapons or three blows that they have lined up to hit the US with. Number one, they have suspended about $108 billion worth of goods, exempted them from tariffs after the trade deal between Trump and European Union. It's about 93 billion euros. So what they are going to do is they are going to basically reinstate those $108 billion on very specific US goods, such as Boeing jets, the alcohol, the bourbon that the US exports, on US motorcycles like Harley Davidson, etc. So this package of $108 billion worth of tariffs, or tariffs on $108 billion worth of exports of the US, some of them are also agricultural products, which will hurt people who have supported Donald Trump. The Europe had prepared these packages to retaliate against Donald Trump's original tariffs, but they had never really implemented them. So the packages are there, they are sitting on the shelf, and so they are planning to launch them. So that will be the first blow that the European Union will score. The second blow is already in process, where the European Union was scheduled to vote on the trade deal with the US had with Europe, in which Europe would pay 15% tariffs on all European goods to the US, and all of US goods will go to Europe for zero tariffs. If you remember that agreement that Donald Trump has signed, so Europe was scheduled to vote on it. I think this week or on February 6th, but they have paused that process. So they have threatened not to ratify the deal between Europe and the US, the tariff deal. And the final thing, which is very interesting, I didn't know about this until today that I was reading. So this is what happens. The Europeans have developed a weapon called ACI, or anti-coercion instrument. So if any economy threatens European economy, they now have a weapon against that coercion. They call it the Bazooka, or ACI, anti-coercion instrument. So let me give you some history about this. In 2021, apparently, Lithuania had some relations with Taiwan, or tried to do something with Taiwan. So China threatened with economic sanctions on Lithuania. And so the Europeans, in order to protect Lithuania from China, came up with this thing called ACI, or they call it the Bazooka, or the anti-coercion tariff. So any economy that threatens. So as a result of that, they have developed certain instruments, some legal instruments, which will allow Europe to impose taxes on the threatening economy, prevent its goods from coming into Europe, and also impose certain other legal requirements, etc. Basically, it's a coercive instrument that would be imposed on that economy. But they also had something very interesting. See, one of the reasons why Europe is not able to act is because all decisions in the European Union have to be made unanimously. So, for example, Europe is struggling to vote things against Russia because either Hungary or maybe in some other Russia friendly country would basically veto it. So, this particular law says that only 55% of the countries, that means a little more than half, so there are 27 countries, so I guess with 14 countries whose population is 65% of the European Union. So 14 of the bigger countries, if they voted, then it is enough for the bazooka to be fired. So they are now threatening to fire the bazooka at the United States economy. So we will see how Mr. Trump responds to that. Mr. Trump is also really very, very upset about the fact that Norway is not only denied him a Nobel Prize, but has also sent some nominal troops to Greenland. In fact, he did write a letter to the Prime Minister of Norway saying that since you have not given me the Nobel Prize, now I don't care as much about peace. And basically, that he's implying that he's going to use force against Greenland. And to make the point that he's very, very serious, Donald Trump has actually sent new military aircraft to the US base in Greenland. So the, while the Europeans have sent some soldiers, the US has sent some aircrafts to the base in Greenland and shored up US air capacity in the region. That's a pretty serious move, by the way, to send actually fighter aircraft into that area. So what's happening basically is in the past 2 or 3 days, both Europe and the US have traded blows against each other. Some of them are rhetorical blows, some of them are diplomatic, and some of them are symbolic blows. And it appears that the gulf between Europe and the US is widening, and the Atlantic Ocean is becoming bigger and bigger, and the distance between the two continents seems to be expanding. It really, really, if these two, I mean, if the US and Europe were to have a very severe breakup, then it will completely undermine the global order with no doubt all the rule-based orders, multilateralism, international organizations, etc. Their backs will be broken. I think if Europe and the US cease to cooperate, there will, I mean, the UN, World Bank, IMF, all of this will become enabled. They will be significantly weakened and maybe will become totally impotent. But something else is also happening as a result of that, and you can see that in the policies of the biggest economy in Europe, which is Germany. So Germany has pivoted towards India, and Germany is trying to rush and put pressure on European Union to make sure that the India-Europe free trade agreement is signed before the end of this month. Today is the 20th, so before 10 days pass, they are trying to see if they can have a free trade agreement with India, which they feel will give them some cushion. I don't know how, if their relationship or the trade war with the US really escalates. So that's one move they're trying to make. And the second move, which is even more fascinating, is they're turning towards Russia. Germany wants to rebalance its relations with Russia. And Russia has absolutely no interest in changing its position vis-a-vis Ukraine. So does that mean that under pressure from the US, will the European Union turn towards Russia to try and rebalance with Russia, and in the process, weaken its support for Ukraine? So that way, Europe might end up giving to both the US and Russia what they have always wanted, at least under Trump, with regards to Ukraine. So there seems to be like the whole geopolitics is going in circles and circles. and you try to straighten them out and make sense of one aspect, and it's like playing a whack-a-mole. You make sense here, and then uncertainty pops up here, and you try to make sense there. And so I mean, as a student of international affairs, it's quite fascinating. But as a citizen of the planet, I find it very troubling and dangerous. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share with all of you about these blows that Europe and Europe and the US have been sharing against each other. And so I will see if there are any interesting comments to read, and I will take some questions from you. But meanwhile, if you have not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. And here are some interesting comments, I think. Hitesh, namaste to you. Sandeep, yes, I will do another show shortly in an hour, India time around 2 p.m. in Hindi. And I will talk a little bit about this, but I will be talking more about the visit of the president of UAE to India yesterday. And yes, I will think of doing something on US Canada too. Especially, I did talk a little bit about US Canada when I talked about Canada's pivot to China and Germany's pivot to India. I think I did that show 2 days ago. Oh, this is a very good question. What's the point of having a trade deal if Trump will keep imposing? Like, for example, Europe had a trade deal, free zero tariffs on American goods, 15% on European goods, and Europe will then invest about 1.2 or $750 billion in the US economy. And now suddenly Donald Trump is imposing 10% more tariffs. And even though it's only on 8 countries, it basically will affect all of European Union. So yes, you have a very good point. Why should countries go through the difficulty? But the point is that most people have already finished their negotiations and have got their trade deal. Like say Bangladesh, for example, Pakistan has 19%, Bangladesh 20%, Sri Lanka 20%. So since they are not so geopolitically engaged with the US, they are enjoying the benefits of those tariffs, lower tariffs, and they do have some trade advantage. Whether they benefit from it or not is a different thing. So not all countries are going to be at loggerheads with the US, but those countries which wish to challenge the US, for them, your point is valid as to why should countries negotiate. Let us see, we have another question. Oh, this is another good question. You're on a roll. If it's not predictable, how can anyone reach for any long-term agreement with the US? Yes, that's a very good point. Unless you can predict how the US economy is going to fare, how the US economic policies are going to be, you cannot make big investments and big deals. There's no doubt about it. It's like saying that, okay, there is 0% or some kind of a subsidy for countries which are going to invest in the US semiconductor industry. And then you decide, okay, I'm going to invest $10 billion. You go and borrow the money, you sell assets to raise the 10 billion, you go to the US to invest, and suddenly the law changes or Trump decides something else. And then you would incur a lot of losses. So yes, you're right. Unless there's predictability, certainty, reliability, and trust, it's going to hurt the US in a big way. Satish Kumar, yes, you're right. Trade deals with the United States are no good. Yeah, Anurag, India did show that. I will be doing a show on India's and other countries' growth for 2025. I'm waiting for more data. So anyway, so there are no more questions. So thank you for watching Conversations. Until next time, I'm your host. Take care.